clear with the stern, but you're way out on the port side.
Roger that. Deck control, we're just adjusting the ship's course to get Hercules a little more centered.
Yeah, roger that. We'll hold off. Yeah, you're not gaining too much. You guys want us to just launch with you guys over there?
Roger that. We're making a little bit of away, so as soon as you're comfortable, we should be all right.
Roger, you guys start to drive and then you get the back end pulled around, so yeah, we'll start launching you.
Roger.
Argus is going down.
Roger that, going down.
Argus cameras. There we go. Thank you. This is Dive Hotel 1893 UTC is 181105 mark.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our viewers around the world.
Good morning, Lindsay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is your 8 to 12 watch here aboard EV Nautilus with a slight modification this morning. Sitting next to me in place of Beth Orcutt, privileged to introduce you to Dr. Chris Kelly. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. Yeah, Beth had a pretty late night last night, and so just thought I'd give her a break for a little while until she wakes up.
Oh, we're happy to have you along with us today.
Welcome, Chris. Yeah.
Jake, can you switch that to 200 meters?
Yep.
Thank you. Your auto heading is yeah. Thanks. Control van's ready.
Ready.
Bump it.
Hey, you've got it, Dex. Going off comms.
Roger that. Yeah, the only other thing I'd say then is that what you can do is we could have turned heading directly into the wind and launched with just manual thrust forward, and we would have drifted support. We would have gone with the current. But it's a little late to change that once you're in the business.
Ground fault on Argus.
Yeah.
All right, once again, good morning, everyone. Chris, so excited to be here with you. Wondering if you can give us a little bit of a preview of our dive today, or at least our dive target.
Sure. So we're going to be diving on a seamount that we assume was named after a ship, and it's called Euphemia. And we're going to be hopefully hitting the summit on this dive. This is not a geo, it is not a flat top seamount. It's a conical seamount, but it's got some sort of ridge structures up on the summit. There is a slight possibility that the very tip of it was exposed at the surface, and so we may or may not get into a little bit of carbonate right at the end of the dive, maybe. But probably not. Probably it's just going to be one of these volcanoes that erupted and the active phase ended before it actually broke surface.
And compared to some of the others that we've been diving on, how does this relatively compare size-wise?
This is kind of similar size to a dive we did 2 nights ago or 2 days ago on, let's see, which one was, trying to remember the name of it now. I can't remember. Anyway, because we've been mixing them up a little bit, so we did Don Quixote.
Then we had an unnamed seamount.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, now it's bigger than the unnamed seamount, and then we went down to Tamana, but I think we had one, or maybe I'm getting mixed up. Maybe the unnamed one is really the only other conical seamount that we did.
So recently, yeah.
Doesn't quite sound right. But anyway, I'm spacing out here.
I think our first dive was on that southern one. Wasn't that a conical seamount?
You're right. Thank you very much. So
Sure.
The very first dives, we called it Seamount A because it's unnamed. It's roughly the same size as that one. Thank you. I'm not used to this early watch here. So I guess I have done a few of them, but.
No problem. It's great to have you. Cool. So relatively somewhat smaller seamount, a little bit larger than the unnamed one. And then we are descending down to just above 1,700 meters. Is that right?
That's correct. And then this is going to be shallower than some of our earlier ones. And we could see something very similar to what we saw last night because that was fairly shallow. We actually got up into the, I think it was 980 some odd meters at the highest point of the dive.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about that is we saw a whole different community up there. And so I'm hoping we're going to see some different things today. I don't mind seeing the same things, of course, but it's always fun to see different creatures and sort of see the depth stratification of these communities down here, where this group of corals and sponges kind of likes it a little bit deeper. Then you got another set that kind of likes it a little bit shallower, and so on and so forth.
Very cool. Maybe we'll do a quick introduction sound off in the van here. So you've just been hearing the voice of Dr. Chris Kelly.
Chris.
Regular old Chris.
Regular old Chris.
I'm Lindsay, your science communication fellow. Let's keep going clockwise around the van here. I'll hand you over to our videographer. Video engineer.
I had to think about clockwise there for a minute. So.
Me too.
Yeah. From bottom up or top down?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm Jeff. I am video for this watch. I will be zooming and focusing and focusing and zooming and figuring out what to put on Sat-3. Next.
This is Jake Bonney, and I am the Argus pilots for today's watch, the 8 to 12.
Jess Sandoval, Herc for 8 to 12.
Renato Kane, navigator on this watch.
And Steve Voskovich, science manager and data logger.
Hello everybody, Kalama Ehu. I am the Olelo Hawaii liaison for this watch as well as the rest of the expedition. I just wanted to send a special aloha la ku'oko'a to Hawaii. So aloha nui, good morning everybody.
Mahalo, everyone. Yeah, and a couple unique things about this watch. We do have Kalama Ehu here answering questions about Hawaiian cultural things, language, the monument, and we also typically on this watch are led by Dr. Beth Orcutt, who is doing a little bit of other work this morning, and we're joined today by Chris Kelly. So throw us your questions, your comments in the chat. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be descending here. Any estimate of when we will potentially reach the seafloor, Jess?
Sorry, guys. I'm a little funky this morning. 45 minutes.
Screaming down 32 meters a minute.
Wow.
Thank you, gravity.
Yeah.
Thank you, gravity.
Screaming down at a walking space.
Thanks for showing those gauges there in channel 3, Jeff. We were talking about that last night, that Jake is regularly monitoring those. And is there a reason that you have to monitor them visually rather than through digital sensors?
I think it just removes like another layer of problems. So if we can monitor it with the cameras and they're just strictly pressure gauges, just reading the hydraulic pressure, then removes like that uncertainty of an electronic measurement of the pressure.
Yeah.
There's enough potential fail spots already, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
No, I just figured out why I couldn't remember the name of the seamount I was thinking of.
Oh.
Because it doesn't exist.
Oh.
This is the seamount.
This is the seamount.
Yeah, because of just transit times and so forth, we changed the order of the dives. And so we were going to originally go from, excuse me, northwest Don Quixote seamount to Euphemia, and then on to Sovereign and Tamana. And instead, we wound up going from northwest Don Quixote down to Tamana already. And somehow I had in my head that we got one of them in between, and we haven't. We're going to do them now. We're going to do them back to back, Euphemia and Sovereign. So that makes me feel a little bit better, not quite as old.
No problem. Now, Chris, I know originally you had planned, you know, an estimated 14 dives on this expedition. We're well over halfway there. You know, any surprises thus far, or how are you feeling? What's the overall feeling of the expedition in our our 10th, 11th dive?
Yeah, I think it's 10 today. The biggest surprise is that we've got the amazing weather that we had. We've had one storm that we had to, it wasn't really even a storm, it was more a higher sea state that we had to escape from. And I'm always one of these guys who tries to make lemonade out of lemons. And so what we did is we had to head south to get out of it. And we needed to do more mapping on Seamount Paul and some of the other ones, Starling. And so we ran down and ran another mapping line down. And then we came back up to get a third mapping line up on these seamounts after the weather state had settled down. And they're basically all mapped, which allows me to actually look and pick dive sites on them, which we didn't have before. And we got right back up here and started operations. Wow. So that's a huge surprise, that, except for that one storm that really didn't set us back. The other thing, of course, I'm always surprised is I think this particular site is going to be very productive, and this particular site is not going to be very productive. And I'm not sure I'm predicting sites very well. You know, we're doing okay, but that one site that was so spectacular with all the sponges and the corals the other day, hadn't really thought that that was going to be as productive as it was going to be. And then a couple other sites that I thought would be just exploding with biology, they turned out to be a little more sparse.
That's the nature of exploration, isn't it? Having to keep that curiosity open.
Yeah, if you already knew everything, where's the fun in that, right?
That's right, yeah.
It's figuring out that's fun. It's a journey that's fun.
Yeah.
And you always try to, for me at least, you always try to predict what's going to happen, you know, and what you're going to see. And most of the times you're quite a bit wrong. I think we're getting a little bit better at what we're going to see now. We've done enough of this, but there's always surprises. Yeah,
we get a lot of questions in the comments from viewers about why are there no animals here? Why are there lots of animals here? And it sounds like we're not always straightforward answers to that.
It isn't straightforward. And we think the current conditions are going to be really good here, and they're not. And then you think this ridge orientation is going to be not so great, and it is. And it's a complicated picture. And it's complicated environmental factors that sort of lead to the development of these really amazing communities down deep. So I think the more times we get down there and the more times we can actually see and collect all the data that we're doing right now, the better it is, because you know we're going to be able to compile all this and look for patterns, which is, we're sort of doing this right now. But no really wonderful pattern that's going to apply to everything has emerged yet. So to give you another example of a surprise, we believe that this whole group of seamounts, which we're calling the South Wentworth seamounts, are very, very old, somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 100 million years. And yet they should have really thick manganese crusts on them because it's an age phenomenon. There's about 2.5 millimeters of manganese crust that's deposited on rocky surfaces every million years. So if you're 80 million years old, you can do the math, right? It should be a pretty substantial layer of crust on it. And yet a couple of the sites had much less manganese crust. And that was really puzzling until Dr. Kevin Conrad, who's one of the scientists on shore, made a comment. It's quite possible that where we were diving, there was some type of a landslide that occurred, you know, not too far into the past. And all of these rocks then were exposed, ones that had previously been buried or been inside of the actual seamount, got exposed, and then the manganese crust started from that point, not from the birth of the seamount. It started later, and therefore we're seeing thinner crusts because there really hasn't been as much time for those rocks. So I never would have thought of that. You know, I always think, you know, if it's this old, it's